Hello everyone and welcome back to your Windows tutorial series. Today we're going to be covering Objective 2.3, which is to learn about computer management and the Microsoft Management Console, including their components and what they're used for. So let's get started. Alright guys, so I am here on a Windows 10 virtual machine. So the first thing that we're going to be covering is computer management. This is a very important part of the operating system, and this is where you're going to go to set a lot of security settings for your operating system. So there are a couple of different ways to open up the Microsoft Management Console. One of those ways is to just right-click on the Start menu button and click Computer Management. As always though, if you can't find it, you can just click on the Start menu button or the search button and just search for it. So there are a lot of things in here to look at. I'm just kind of going to go over the highlights, but as always, if you guys have any extra time, it is strongly encouraged that you open up a Windows 10 operating system and go through computer management just to kind of learn some of the different settings and get familiar with the layout. That way, when it's actually time to set settings, you know where to go and you're comfortable using computer management. So the first section that we'll look at is the task scheduler. Alright guys, so here's the task scheduler. So it is running a little slowly, it still hasn't loaded yet. But normally when you look at the task scheduler, what you would see is this is where you would go if your computer is set to run any specific tasks at a certain time. So like if you wanted to run a certain app at a certain time, this is where you would go. So this is an important section to look at because you want to make sure that there is nothing unless you've set a setting that you need, you want to make sure that there's nothing scheduled to open or scheduled to run on Task Scheduler. So as you can see, there's nothing here, but this is a good place to check. And you can see what tasks have occurred in the past. So right now it's just set to show the last 24 hours, but you can set it to show like the last 7 days or the last month. Another important section to look at is Event Viewer. So this pretty much logs everything that happens on your computer. So like anytime someone tries to log in and they, passed or they fail, all of that is recorded here. So this is a good area to become comfortable with over time. Just kind of learn how to look through the event viewer and see what's here. So being able to look through Event Viewer and just kind of know what you're looking at is a good way to see if there's been any malicious or unauthorized activity occurring on your operating system. Another good part to check is to look at the shared folders. So what a Windows share is that's when you would share a folder over the network so that way other accounts could access it. And so it's always a good idea to check to see what shares are on your computer because you don't want you don't want files shared with people who shouldn't have access to them. So these are the default shares for the operating system. Unless you created a share, unless there's one here that you need. If you see a share here that's not one of these 3 default ones, you probably want to get rid of it. So another important area to look at is the local users and groups section. So this is where you would go to add new accounts or disable accounts or delete accounts from your operating system. So if you guys saw the Windows setting video, there was you could see that there was another way to add accounts to the computer. You're probably going to want to do this through computer management though, just because you have a lot more options for settings that you can set. So as you can see, pretty much everything, all the default accounts are disabled. That's good practice because you don't want people to use the default accounts to log in. So like the guest account doesn't require a password, which is not very secure. It could mean that, anyone could just come and log in with the guest account and have access to the computer. So I'm not really going to go into the details right now. There's going to be a future video covering the local users and groups. But if you did want to add users and groups, this is how you would do it. You could also disable accounts here. You could delete accounts, and you could just manage accounts, like change their password settings and stuff like that. Here you also have groups. So the groups are where you would see what users belong to what groups. So essentially a group is just a collection of like tasks and privileges that the users have in the computer. So it's always good practice to operate on the principle of least privilege, meaning that users only have access to the least amount of privilege they have. So like, for example, you don't want everyone to be an administrator or to have remote access to the computer. And so you could create a group and customize what they have access to, but you can also see there's a lot of ones that are here too that you can use, like remote management, remote desktop. Use this section to make sure that users are assigned to the group that they're supposed to be. And again, there will be a future video covering all of this information. All right, so here's the performance monitor. So this is just where you would use to see how your operating system is performing. So you could see information about the hardware resources that are in use. You could look at processes and services. So this isn't an area that I'm going to go into right now, but this is another area that's definitely worth looking at and seeing if you can kind of figure out how it works. All right, so this is the Windows Device Manager. This is where you would go to see what devices are connected to your computer. So you can see what keyboards are connected, what mice are connected, the monitors. This is also where you would go to update drivers for the devices on the operating system. Another important part of the operating system is the services. So if you click on services, you can see all of the services that are running on your operating system. It is strongly recommended that you guys go and on your own make a list of what services you don't need to have running on your operating system. Because, for example, you probably don't want remote desktop running on your computer, because remote desktop is an app that would allow someone to, from another computer, connect to your computer and do stuff on it and change settings. So that's an example of a service that you might want to disable. There will be a later video covering going more in depth into the Windows services, but you can see the service name, and if you click on it, you can see a description, or if you just scroll over it, you can see a description of what the service does. You can see if it's running, if it's been stopped, if it's set to start automatically, or if you have to manually start it, or if it's disabled. So, but one important thing to remember is that if you do decide to disable a service, just make sure that you're disabling the right service, or that it's a service that can be disabled, because a lot of these services are essential to the operation of your Windows operating system, and if you shut them down, your operating system is going to start malfunctioning. Alright, so that's pretty much it for computer management. There's one more thing that I wanted to show you guys, and that's the Microsoft Management Console. So one way to access it is to click on the Start menu and search for it. It's Microsoft Management Console, but it's abbreviated to MMC. So you can search for mmc.exe. The exe means that it's an executable that can be run. So if you just type it in, you can run it. So this is the Microsoft Management Console. So what exactly is the Microsoft Management Console, and why would you want to use it? So what the Microsoft Management Console does is it allows you to add what are called snap-ins to your Microsoft Management Console, and those would allow you to perform certain functions on your operating system. So like computer management, event viewer, all of those can be added here. So the benefit for doing that is, say you are in charge of running a network, and every day when you go in, you need to access like computer management, you need to access event viewer to see what's occurred, you want to access task scheduler, but you don't want to go and have to individually open those things each day. What you would do is you would go to file and you would add a snap-in. So as you can see, computer management's been added to this one. And then you could save your Microsoft Management Console and then just open it up every day, so you don't have to keep opening up new snap-ins. So if you want to add a snap-in, you would just click on it and click add and then click OK. And now computer management is available to use in your Microsoft Management Console. Alright guys, that's it for today's lesson. In today's lesson, we covered Objective 2.3, which was to learn about computer management and the Microsoft Management Console, including their components and what they're used for. As always, it's strongly recommended that if you have some time, go onto a Windows virtual machine and play around with computer management and the Microsoft Management Console. Just see what different settings are available, and just kind of get comfortable with using both of those. So, alright, that's it. Thanks guys.